Well, survived for another week, with our team, and really fortunate to get out of there with a 2-0 weekend against Sam Houston. And obviously this is the week that a lot of people have been waiting for, with UTEP coming in. We're the two preseason favorites, the only two left undefeated in Conference USA play. Kind of been a collision course, and certainly I think this weekend will have a lot to do with who wins the regular season championship. And so we're looking forward to hopefully having a good week and playing well.
I mean, you kind of touched on it. This is kind of what you play for. These two teams unbeaten, kind of been on this collision course for a while, and now here we are. Got to be excited about the opportunity. Excited about it being at home for this opportunity.
Yeah, the biggest difference between UTEP and ourselves is experience. UTEP's filled with, fourth and fifth year seniors that have been in all of these battles over the last 2 or 3 years, and I got a locker room full of kids that have just heard about it, from players that came before them. And I think that's the biggest difference this weekend. If you're looking for something that could potentially separate the two of us, you would rather have the experienced group. So it is great to have them here at home. I think that helps some. But this UTEP is having a phenomenal year. They're very firmly in position to get to the NCAA tournament. I think their RPI is like 17 or something like that, and they've had a great year. They've done it little by little and continue to grow and build. And this reminds me a lot of the Conference USA days when it was Western Kentucky and Rice. And, for many, many years we battled with Rice, and it was similar to this. We were both nationally known teams. We were both in a position to get to the tournament, whether we, win these matches or not. And I think that's the case this week. As strange as it sounds, these are two matches that concern me less than anything left on our schedule, because in terms of, our ultimate goal is to play in the NCAA tournament. That's what we're trying to do. Every year we're defining ourselves by whether we get to postseason. And to be honest, these games can't hurt us in terms of that. They can only help us. And so if we beat UTEP twice this weekend, I don't think that harms their NCAA tournament chances at all. And if UTEP beats us twice, I don't think it harms our NCAA tournament chances at all. This weekend, I think we'll go a long way to decide the regular season champion in Conference USA, and that's important to us too. But it's a secondary factor But we sit here with 8 games left in the regular season, and everything incredibly, with all of the youth and injuries and potholes that we've run into along the way, we sit here with 8 left, and everything we still want is in front of us. And so we're excited to see, what we can do down the stretch.
You bring a Kyra back, you have an Izzy that's here, and you said this group is pretty much back for the most part as far as injuries go. To see a wide span of a sweep to a 5-set match this weekend, what do you take from that?
Well, it is great to have everybody back. Kyra's weekend went about like you thought it would go. Friday she was very measured and calculated in her movements, and you saw her not really be in the rhythm of the match. And then Saturday was better than it was on Friday. And there's an effect that Kyra has that goes beyond just what she does. I don't think it's a coincidence at all that Faith and Izzy numbers look like they did on Saturday, because the way that match played out early is, we went to Kyra early and she was really finishing plays, and now all of a sudden the blocking scheme has to change a little bit and it frees things up in the middle. And so that's something we've desperately needed for the last few weeks, and it's good to see her. Hopefully she can back that up with a good week of practice and continue to step forward. You reference winning in 3 on Friday and being in a 5-set battle on Saturday. First, I'll tell you that I never wanted to be in a 5th set, but in hindsight, I think it could be good for us as we get close to conference tournament. It's been a while since we've been in a long match, in a 5-set match, and with a young team. I think that's something hopefully we can lean into a little bit, because when we get to tournament time, we're going to be in that situation again. And I think it's good. You can only replicate the pressure of it and all of that by being in it. And then, why were we in a 5-set match on Saturday? I would like to say I've overused the word vulnerable this year, our team, but I've probably underused it because, it's just who we are. Like we're talented enough to beat an Indiana who's in the top 25 in 3 sets, here on our home court, and we're vulnerable enough to play a team that's still looking for their first conference win and end up in a battle in a 5th set. Like that's just who we are. I've been trying to outrun it since the beginning of the year. I don't feel like I've outrun it great, but yet we're 17-4 on the year. And when you're as young as we are dealing with what we've gone through, it's pretty remarkable. And so, but I guess we just have to swallow it and accept that we're going to be in those situations and we're just going to have to fight our way through it. And luckily we were able to on Saturday.
You mentioned after yesterday that defensively was not where you wanted to be. Certainly coming up this weekend, that defense is going to have to kind of step back up to the way it was playing.
No question about it. It's not going to be, we were ultimately able to outslug Sam Houston a little bit in that match. We hit over 400, but we must defend. And, for the most part, our floor defense has been pretty good this year. For the most part, our floor defense has been pretty good. For the most part, our serving has been pretty poor. And for the most part, our blocking's been pretty solid. Well, this weekend, our blocking was very, very poor. If you watch that match, we had a ton of balls that were hit right at people, that rattled through their hands, that they didn't finish. And, serving continues to be an area that we're not excelling at. And now all of a sudden, if you're not blocking well, 2 of the 3 phases of defense, you're not playing at a very high level. And then more than anything else, the part that irritated me the most is just a ton of missed assignments, just a ton of scout stuff, where it's, if this happens, they'll probably hit this shot, be there, and then that scenario would play out and they would hit that shot and we'd have a kid out of position, and that stuff's uncalled for. That's got to be ownership by our players, and it's got to be ownership by our staff to make sure that we get that message clear.
So far this season, you've talked about just lots of young players. What are some players maybe so far throughout these challenges that you've seen step up in a leadership role, grow in that role, and be able to help this team, especially in a big week like this?
Without question, the kid that jumps off the page at me in that manner, and she's been absolutely huge for our team, is Faith Young. Faith, again, is only a sophomore. But when you look around, we don't have a lot to lean into in terms of old heads out there. And so Faith has, about a month ago, you could just start seeing a different Faith Young. And it's not just tied to what her numbers are every night. It's just a determination. It's an ownership of doing things poorly when she does. You don't have to go talk to her about it. She knows, and she's owning it, and she's, and that's what you're looking for. And I continue to hold her up in our locker room to the rest of our young players and say, if you want to know, I keep telling you guys what it's supposed to look like. That's what it looks like. And she's played big in big moments. She's been consistent in her approach to doing things, and I think that she's a kid that's really led the way in terms of that. And then, I don't know about leadership-wise, but, Izzy Vanderwheely's really starting to come on. I told you guys 2 weeks ago she's starting to look different to me, and it's showing in her numbers. Incredibly, she's back up over hitting 300 on the year now after, what she started the year with. She was hitting in the 100s for the majority of the year, and so she's coming on. And then we need Kyra to take one more step. We need Kyra to get back to that Indiana level that she was at, because when she is, we're different. There's just no question about it. We're different from an offensive standpoint. And so, we're running out of time. Like, if it's going to come together, it's time for it to come together, and there'd be no better week than playing a team like UTEP.
Can you see Izzy's confidence growing, not just in her performance, but in getting past the multiple injuries and the nicks that she's had and finally getting home?
Yeah, I tell kids all the time, like, you can't be a person that needs to play well and then feel good about yourself. And it kind of should go in the other order. Like, you're supposed to go out there with a confidence and a determination and everything, and playing well is the byproduct. And, like I said before, Izzy started putting up the numbers she's put up in the last 2 weeks, you could just tell she was moving different, moving more freely, and she was thinking about beating the person across the net instead of, is my ankle okay? Is my ab okay? And that's a big hurdle for her, and so hopefully we can keep moving in that direction.
You know, Coach, in years past, it's been a Kaylee Cox that's dominating, a Paige Briggs that's dominating. This year, there's not one dominant force, but it's just a collective group dominating as a whole. Do you like that dynamic? Is it something, fresh to see a change like that?
I love it. It's what I always crave. Early last year, Kaylee had some matches, man, where she really put us on her back, and I walked in the locker room afterwards and said, Kaylee, that's awesome. That's not who I want to be. When we're good, it's when we can come at you from anywhere. And if you look now at the 5 kids that we're rolling out there, it's some pretty elite numbers offensively. I think the lowest hitting percentage on our team is above 250. And, Kyra, we need Kyra to come back and get going. But, in the midst of all these injuries, you see what Kendall Miller and Sonia Loxton have done. Sonia's a totally different kid now. And that balance is what you seek, because that is what's truly, like when you have a team that has a elite player or two, then you spend your whole week scheming to try to find ways to slow that kid down. Okay, when you're built like we're built now, we're just sitting there waiting to see what you're going to, just like what we did against Sam Houston. We hit 424 on Saturday against Sam Houston. That's an enormous number. Okay, well, why couldn't Sam Houston get us stopped? Because it's just a pivot constantly. Early in the game, it was throw the ball to Kyra Knox, and she was tearing them up, and now all of a sudden a blocker starts leaning toward her, and now you can throw it in the middle, and that's who we are. That's who we are beyond our starting 5. Right now when we're healthy, all of our starting 5 can do that, but you can throw a Gabby Y in there, and she can do the same thing. You can throw a Kendall or a Sonia, whoever's not in there, and let's stop talking about it. That's who I said going into the season I was excited to coach, and we just haven't been healthy enough to do it.
And you just mentioned all these names, but then there's also an Olivia Skidmore that just continues to kind of do what she's doing. Kind of speaks to the volume and the depth.
Yeah, Liv has had a good year in a year where I've been pushing her to have a great one. And match by match, I've spent a lot of time with Olivia Skidmore in practice over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and she's starting to trend in the right direction. She had a big weekend for us this weekend. Offensive Player of the Week in Conference USA this week, and she changes us like Kyra changes us. She gives you a dominant player that you can lean into, who can put up big numbers like she did in that 20-kill performance on a team, like I said, that doesn't have to have somebody like that. And it's all matchup based, and it's all how people are defending us, and she's really starting to come on and at this point in the season, which is good.
Coach, looking at UTEP from a winning standpoint, obviously you talked about the season being down and going every kind of which way. What do you think it will take from a winning standpoint? Is it more so the players just performing and doing what they do best, or responding to how things are? If things don't go their way, how can they respond and still find a way?
Yeah, the only thing that's going to give us a chance this weekend is if we just keep playing. Because, again, we are at a massive disadvantage in terms of experience. And those UTEP kids have been through every kind of match you can possibly go through over the course of their 3 or 4 years in their lineup. And they're going to come in here, super confident, super determined, because they know they're good enough, and they are. They're well coached, and they're veteran players, and if we both play at our max, it's going to be a special environment in Diddle Arena. The challenge for our kids is how long can we continue to play at a high level? That's been our thing. Even in matches that we've struggled, you'll see where we ended up in a 5th set against Sam Houston this week, but if you look at the first 2 sets we won, they were like 25-15, 25-16. It's not can we play at a high level, it's can we play at a high level consistently. And that's what veteran teams do. And so if I'm UTEP, I'm just talking about keep playing, right? Because and make Western Kentucky stay at a high level from beginning to end. And we've done it infrequently this year, but when we've done it, like we did against Indiana, like we did against Dayton when they were in the top 25, when we've done it, we've been pretty special. And so we have the capability, but it's not go and practice this week and make sure we can do a certain thing. It's, can our kids show up and do it over and over and over and over again? And that'll really be the tale of the tape this weekend.
Coach, we're creeping up on a pretty historic milestone for you personally. A few wins away from 800 wins. Only 20 other D1 head coaches have done that in the game of volleyball. I know you're locked in on this season as a whole, but do you feel like that's going to set at the end of the year, just looking at your career, how many wins you've done over the years?
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe at the end of the year I can sit back. I had no idea that there's only 20 coaches ever, that have eclipsed that 800 mark. And, it's just a lot of good fortune through the years, a lot of hard work through the years. I don't get so excited about that because it's just a byproduct. It's kind of like what I'm trying to tell our kids. Like, we don't need to go out and try to win against UTEP this weekend. We need to try to go out and just do our job at a high level over and over and over again. And that's what I'm trying to do too, is I realize that's on the horizon, and I'll look back, and that's a pretty phenomenal thing to be able to say. And but we'll let that be bragging rights for my kids someday maybe. My dad did this, or I'm not going to walk around sticking my chest out saying that we did. I'm just trying to do my job at a high level consistently every day. And if I can teach our kids to do their job at a high level consistently every day, then good things come from that. And so, at the end of the year, I'll probably be sitting in my fishing boat some point, in postseason, and I'll be out there and I'll think about it, and I'm proud of it and all that. But I'm going to go try to be a really good coach today. And I still spend, like I was just saying in my podcast, what I catch myself doing this time of year is my mind starts wandering to off season. And I don't mean off season to get a break. I start thinking about our young players and how much better they can get by next year. And that's still what I spend more of my time thinking about than how many wins or championships or anything else. And it's probably why I've stayed in this for so long, because that next opportunity to help impact somebody is right around the corner.